One of the first things most people do when they get a bit of money, usually from their job, is they get a mortgage on a house. Because we're kind of taught as we grow up that the best way to make, or
Yeah,
the not maybe the best, but the most obvious way to create wealth is to buy your first home.
yeah. There's a very basic rule for that, and I understand it, and I did the same thing. But what I made sure again from my mother was never let the mortgage and the cost of maintaining the house be more than 1/3 of your income. 1/3 of your income. If it's more than 1/3, you bought too much house. So it's better to buy a house that's maybe it's only going to be 1,900 square feet to start in a neighborhood that you may not want to stay in for the rest of your life, but start to accrue the benefit of real estate from that point of view. Learn how to manage it. Maybe you rent part of it out or whatever, but it can't be more than 1/3 of your income. The mistake that people made, and they're starting to suffer from it now, is when money was so cheap, mortgage rates were under 4%, they were 3.2%, some of them. They bought massive houses. And now they're running into having to refinance those houses at much higher rates, more than 7%, and it's becoming 60, 70, 80% of their income. They're screwed. They bought too much house. So it's about making sure that you can manage that. And also you want some diversification. Yes, a mortgage is okay, particularly if you're having a family, because you're going to pay rent or you're going to pay a mortgage, one of the two. But you want some diversification into starting to build up that investment account for when you retire so that you have something to live off. If you only put aside 15%, if you're making $70,000 a year and you put 15% aside from when you're 25, you'll have over $1.5 million if you just invested it in the stock index, in the S&P 500. That's what history has told you.
In what time frame?
Your whole career. I mean, you're going to be 65. You're 25, 65. You just stick with that protocol, and you'll watch it grow. You'll watch it grow. You go up and down as the market goes up and down. Some years it'll go flat, whatever. But it's the people that don't even think ahead and find themselves at 45 mired in debt, including a mortgage. You want to get rid of your mortgage in your 40s.
Most people's primary investment asset is the house they buy. Is that
Yes,
smart?
it is, but it's also the debt they own. It's a primary asset. How much debt does it have on it? It's only the equity value is the asset. So if you're buying a house that's too big and you've only put down 10% and it's 90% mortgage, what do you really own? You really own the 10% at whatever price it is. Sometimes housing goes flat for a while. It's okay, but it's not okay if it's too much house.
If you're a 25-year-old and you're on that 70K that you talked about, and your objective was to make money, you don't have kids, you're not in a relationship, would you buy a house?
No, I wouldn't, because why do I need a house unless I'm renting it as an income property? I'm buying a house because I'm getting married. I'm going to raise a family. I need a house. I mean,
Is that the use case for buying a house, you think?
I think it is. People, but it's not. There are many people that say, I love real estate. I'm going to buy 3 houses. I'm going to rent them out. That's a different business. And I know people in their 20s that do that. In fact, they're successful. That's all they do. And so that their job is to find houses, buy them, fix them up, and rent them. And they manage that geographically tight portfolio. It happens a lot in student housing, for example. I've got a good friend who's involved in student housing. He's very successful. He just focuses on one aspect, buildings that rent to students, and he manages it. And he, raises a family. He's successful, but that's one thing he does. That's not the same as saying I'm going to buy a house because I just got married and I'm going to have a child in the next 24 months. Then you should have a house. But if you said to me, I'm single, I want to make money, I wouldn't buy a house. That's not the number one asset class, I think. I'd get a diversified portfolio and just ride the pony with that for a while until I meet that special person I'm going to, raise a family with. And then I have a little nest egg I can work with. I mean, wealth creation comes down to one word: discipline. That's it. The ability to look at something and say, I'm not going to buy that. I'm going to keep that money working for me. Not many people have that discipline. Wealthy people have that discipline. You meet them later in life, you realize when they were young and had nothing, even the ones that were employees their whole lives that are now financially free, had the discipline to say no. There's so much stuff you don't need. And you should never buy a watch unless you can afford it. Ever go on debt for a watch, because people hear this stuff say, I'm going to buy watches like O'Leary with red bands. No, you're not. That's why I wear watches now that cost under $500 to show kids, you want to get into horology, you don't have to spend, $50,000. here's a Timex for $265. It looks beautiful. Get that.
You said, don't buy the house until you meet your partner, etc. How much does the person that you fall in love with have an impact on your finances, your money, your chance of success, in your view?
It's everything. Are you kidding? I mean, it's everything. If you read, think about this. You need to find somebody. If you're an entrepreneur, so that's we're talking about the third now that want to go on the rocket ship ride. You better find somebody that's willing to tolerate the fact that you're never home for the first 10 years. They're going to raise a family by themselves because there's no balance in life. That idea of balance is complete bullshit. I mean, it's just bullshit. You have to work so hard to compete globally these days in every sector. You're going to work your ass off. And it's not going to happen Anna Skaya did it in 3 years, but she had worked much harder previously. It was not her first deal. But she was just lucky.
Was this the cat DNA?
The cat thing. Yeah. But she's working again. She's back. She wants to work. That's what happens. You never stop working. But the thing is, that partnership, and this is what people don't get about marriage. Marriage is a business. I know people go nuts when I say that, but it's a business. And the first child you're going to have is money. It's going to be the first child, and it's going to sit at the table with you every day. It's there, it's sitting there. If you don't have money, you don't have a marriage. The reason people get married is to form a form of financial stability so that they can afford a family. And you have to figure out, I've been with my wife a long time, and we've been separated for a couple of years. But family's very important to me. So we got back together again, and our daughter got us back together, and I'm very happy we did it. But we make financial decisions together. We always check in. Anything that's material. If we're going to do a renovation or something, and I respect her for that. I have a lot of respect for her because she doesn't just spend money. We didn't have any money when we started. We had nothing. And so that's why a great marriage can work, because you build it together. You really care about it. You care about your family. You also care about what you've created in wealth. And I consider my money her money, because she was the family that let me go and do this stuff. Now, I don't have the same relationship with our kids that she does because she raised them. But that's the thing you give up, and you have to give something up. That's it. You can be a great father, a great provider, but you're never going to have the closest that she had reading them stories when they were young. I wasn't there. But, the outcome has been good. I think everybody looks at that and says, all right, that's great. But my mother never believed in entitlement, and so I don't believe in it either. I'm not gifting my kids a ton of money. I want them to launch, and they've done that successfully. They gotta work. They got to do their thing.
I've heard you say before that the most important financial decision you'll ever make is who you'll marry.
Yes.
Why?
Because think of the geometric loss of wealth. Every time you get divorced, you pay the woman that you divorced, or man, and you pay the government a third, often through capital gains and liquidation, because you can't separate all the assets without liquidating them sometimes. So you've got the government sitting there. You've got the other spouse sitting there. This is the stupidest thing you can ever do. It took your whole life to actually create this nest egg. It could be, you're 45 or whatever. You've got a comfortable life, and all of a sudden you don't like your wife or husband. Think about that for a while, because you are going to wipe out up to 2/3 of your wealth. You better really like somebody else a lot. And frankly, sometimes it's not the other person that you're divorcing, it's you. You're the problem. If you're getting married for the third time, you're a guy or a woman, it's not them, it's you. There's something wrong with you. And you should probably not get into another economic union. You should probably just date till you drop dead, because it's stupid. Marriages are tough. They're tough. Anybody who's been married for more than 20 years knows exactly what I'm talking about. But they accrue more benefit than anything. So if you're happy 51% of the day with your wife, stay with him or her, husband or wife. That's very important.
How often do you think divorces are a result of money issues?
Well, you may be shocked at this. I wrote a book about this, and I decided Men, Women, and Money a long time ago, 10 years plus, right? There it is. And I did some research, and I went to meet some of the top divorce lawyers in North America. in New York, in Boston, and other cities. And I said, look, I want to kind of do a pie chart of reasons for divorce that 50% seemed to end in divorce within 5 to 7 years. Every one of them, they didn't know each other, said it's not infidelity, nothing to do with it. Most marriages can survive infidelity. They can't survive financial stress. And so what happens invariably is you fall in love, but you didn't do any due diligence on that person's spending habits or their financial history, because l'amore is so wonderful in the early days. You didn't do any diligence on their family or them or their brother or bankruptcy in the past or whatever it is. And then you get married and, you know, the euphoria starts to wear off and you notice that the other is outspending you, just buying a lot of stuff beyond your means. And that starts the first friction. And then that credit card comes in with $100,000 on it at 23% interest, and another purse was bought or whatever the hell it is. And you're starting to sink because you may have married somebody who can't stop spending. This is just a typical, there are people that have no discipline. They just can't. They got to have the boat, they got to have this, they got to have that, and they pressure their other to say, look, I want to keep up with the Joneses next door, even though they may only each have a salary of $100,000 each. Can't do it. And they have kids, and they're trying to put them through college. That's divorce. That's why almost 90% of unions break up, is that classic financial pressure. And divorce gets them out of that mess because they can no longer spend on your credit card anymore. But it's a horrible way to go. So I'm an investor in a company called Hello Prenup that does prenups for women. And prenups force during the euphoric period diligence. It's that simple. You're going to find out if that person has a financial problem going into the marriage. They have to disclose their financial background.
So you talk about these 5 love languages of money. The mooch, someone who won't pay for anything.
Right.
Should I date someone like that?
It's a warning signal. It's a problem.
It's a problem.
Or they don't really want you for companionship. They just want you for financial support.
The spendaholic, someone who always offers to pay for everything to appear popular and successful.
Bad warning sign. Huge. I mean, that is insecurity measurable by cash outlay.
The loafer, someone who has no ambition and drive for money.
Avoid with extreme prejudice.
The thief, someone who steals.
You can have no tolerance for that.
And the meanie, a balanced spender who lives within their means.
Love that. Marry a meanie. That's it. Those are the marriages that last an entire life. That's it. That's what you're looking for. That's great advice right there. Whatever the book costs, that's the best value right there. And then ask yourself, am I dating one of these or not? You know, you should talk about money on the third date. Think about a date. Think about dating. First date. Oh my goodness, this is a really interesting person. Or not. Then there's never a second date. Second date, I want to learn more. I'm really interested. You're going into a third date. There's something going on. There's something going on. You both want to meet again. That's the first time you should say, look, I know this is crazy, but we're here together a third time because something's going on here. And I'm just wondering, what are your long-term goals? I mean, it's not about our marriage or anything else other than we're having a great time, but what are your ambitions? I'm really interested in you. I'd like to know what you think. And maybe the woman says, or the guy says, "What, are you checking me out?" You say, yeah. Yeah, I'm really interested in you. It's a form of finding out if the connection, I should be a marriage counselor. That's what I think. I mean, it's really, dating is the dance, but it should involve exploring where we're going financially.
For many years, you've probably seen this iPad sat in front of me. You've probably wondered what's on it, and I'm going to tell you today because they're now our show sponsor, thankfully. It's an app called GoodNotes, and it's where I store all of my research, all of my information, but also where I take notes in real time when the guest is speaking to me. I love this app because it's so dynamic, but also because of this new feature, which is called Ask Good Notes. It's basically my AI companion. I can search the 200 pages sometimes of notes and information that I have in front of me in just seconds. I can type into the Ask Good Notes feature, what was the name of Kevin's mother? I'm speaking to Kevin O'Leary on the podcast. He starts talking about his mother. I have a couple of seconds to figure out what she's called so I can ask him a question about her in a polite way. Ask Good Notes looks through all of my notes, responds back to me in seconds. If you're someone that loves taking notes, but your notes are a mess and you can't read your own handwriting, i.e. me, I think Good Notes might be the solution for you. And Ask Good Notes, which is their new AI feature, might just be the tool that turns you into an organized person. That's certainly how it feels for me. So I asked Good Notes if they would give my listeners a 30-day free trial to try it out. And they've given us one on iOS and Mac. So if you want to use that 30-day free trial, go to goodnotes.com/DOAC or sign up now for your yearly subscription for just $9.99 per year. That's $9.99 per year. Go to goodnotes.com/DOAC. I've built companies from scratch and backed many more, and there's a blind spot that I keep seeing in early stage founders. They spend very little time thinking about HR, and it's not because they're reckless or they don't care, it's because they're obsessed with building their companies, and I can't fault them for that. At that stage, you're thinking about the product, how to attract new customers, how to grow your team, really how to survive, and HR slips down the list because it doesn't feel urgent, but sooner or later it is. And when things get messy, tools like our sponsor today, JustWorks, go from being a nice to have to being a necessity. Something goes sideways and you find yourself having conversations you did not see coming. This is when you learn that HR really is the infrastructure of your company, and without it, things wobble. And JustWorks stops you learning this the hard way. It takes care of the stuff that would otherwise drain your energy and your time, automating payroll, health insurance benefits, and it gives your team human support at any hour. It grows with your small business from startup through to growth, even when you start hiring team members abroad. So if you want HR support that's there through the exciting times and the challenging times, head to justworks.com now. That's justworks.com. One of the big protagonists in the story of many things we've discussed, money, investing, building businesses now, is this thing called artificial intelligence, which you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
It's like entered the room.
Yes.
And it's changing lots of these equations in a really profound way. Again, for that person who is maybe at the start of their career, or even, they're a lawyer right now, how are you thinking about AI? What should they be thinking about? Because I don't think we've seen something quite like this, certainly not in my lifetime. I've not seen disruption of this scale. I wasn't around for the dot-com boom. I was too young. I was 10 or something. I was 8.
Yeah.
So how should we be thinking about this moment? Is it a huge opportunity for wealth creation, or?
Yeah, it's immense. It's bigger than the internet. I'll tell you why. I want to keep it down to earth because I'm actually using it now in use cases. There's every sector of the economy, every aspect of research, every aspect of business has a huge opportunity here. But let's just take use cases that you would understand, everybody listening would understand. In today's post-pandemic world, most businesses have developed, large and small, direct-to-consumer strategies where they try and build relationships with customers and sell them product direct. Yeah, they still use retail. Say you're Nike or something, and you were 27%, direct-to-consumer before the pandemic. You're now 50%. And direct-to-consumer gets you higher margins, but it also gets you data, gets you information about the preferences of your customer base, what they like, what they don't like, the flavors, and what they buy, when they buy, where they buy it, all that stuff. And it's very interesting, that data. And let me give you an example, wine business. If you think about the wine business, the challenge of a 1,000-year-old business, you don't know what the weather's going to be like. You don't know what varietals to grow because you don't know what the preference of the customer is because you're selling it through multiple tiers of distribution. During the pandemic, 43 states in America opened up direct-to-consumer sales from the wineries on the West Coast. For the first time ever, the wineries found out what people buy, where they buy it, when they buy it, what they drink, what varietals. And I'm in the wine business. I sell 3 million bottles a year of wine. One of my companies, actually a Shark Tank company. And we partner with a company called QVC. We sell online. And so I can tell you today, this month, this week, the number one varietal in Southern Florida for women ages 44 to 64 is Moscato, a sweet wine. I think it tastes like shit. I don't care what I think. It's the number one wine right now. And I knew that to make that varietal available 6 months ago. so that I would be able to ship it and put the inventory, the CapEx, in the right place at the right time to support that demand for the rest of this summer. A sweet, cold Moscato wine. That means I spent a lot less money and a lot less risk. I don't have any varieties they don't want this summer. I have exactly what they want. That was AI. It cost me virtually nothing to get that data. 5-10 years ago, it would have cost me $1 million to go do all the market research. I got that for $18,000. So that's using an AI tool. Here's another example. So do I use that tool? 100%. And there's many tools. You don't have to just use chat. There's many different competing platforms. So we use them all. We check the assumptions by checking it all on all of them to see the little variances. Number two, I have to shoot an ad. I have to shoot a commercial. I'm going to shoot it here in LA. I'm going to do it in a studio like this with a green screen, and I'm going to spend, $250,000 for a 30, a 15, a 30, and a 60 out of the same shoot. And I'm then going to go into post with the green screen, and I'm going to spend more money in post. I'm going to add whatever I need, whatever background I'm going to need. Or I could fly to Dubai, where they have a giant studio with a 6K digital wall, where AI links up your script to the background. There is no post-production. You basically shoot the commercial in 4 hours, and it's done. The background's perfect, the imagery's perfect, your script is perfect. And I did that 2 weeks ago for the first time. I'd never seen that before. We did it for a fraction of the cost of what it would have cost to do it in the old way in post-production. But then I'll tell you what freaked me out. They reshot the commercial without me there using Kevin Agent.
An AI view.
I wasn't even there. And just to show that they could produce a new commercial with the same background for $9,000 that would have cost $400,000 from scratch.
So there's going to be a lot of job disruption then? Because as you said,
you don't say. But on the other hand, I've now got content for that particular business. I was shooting that, I've got content for that particular business I was going to shoot that commercial for. And I said, guys, let's tweak it and shoot it again. He said, yeah, we'll do it in 2 seconds. We'll send you the 15 seconds back. I said, I don't like what I said there. Can I change what I said? He said, yeah, well, do you want it in Spanish? You want it in Japanese? You want it in Arabic? That's the power, the productivity that we're going to get. Our budgets for producing content are going to drop dramatically over the next
and software and everything else, right? Creating everything is going to get
now full circle to your thing about the chips. That all came from NVIDIA chips. That's not from Chinese chips. Whoever controls the chip and the honeybees those guys are all Indians and Pakistanis. They're genius mathematicians. That's the team over there running off that platform. If we had I'm just freaked out that we got to control that. We need democracy to control that.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.